I'm back. Quick recap of what I read. Einstein came to the rescue once again, saving Nora from Streck. Once again, because Streck has actually went to a whole nother level of being a creep, and this is really aggravating. Dangerous and obnoxious. I don't know if that's the word. Yeah, obnoxious. Because Nora can catch a break, you know? Strike is really being a total creep. But good thing Einstein came to the rescue, convinced Travis to go visit Nora once again, even though Travis was retaliating, even though he didn't want to go, still went. Because initially Nora had called Travis to negotiate on Travis giving Nora Einstein, and when Nora called Travis, she couldn't find the words to tell him what it is that she wanted, so she didn't say anything. So Travis hung up, and he called again because Einstein had convinced him. Because Einstein's a smart dog. Travis called, Nora didn't pick up, but Einstein kept on convincing Travis until Travis had enough and finally gave in. And when he and Einstein had went to visit Nora was running away from Travis, trying to save herself from, not from Travis, from Arthur Streck. Yeah, trying to save herself from Arthur Streck. And that's where I left off. And I also read a little bit of Vince going back to Orange County, which is where Travis and Nora are. So this is gonna be interesting. He read the newspaper during the trip to his townhouse in Huntington Beach. And on page 3, he saw the story about the fire on Banodyne Laboratories in Irvine. The blaze had broken out shortly after 6 o'clock yesterday morning, when Vince had been on his way to the airport to catch the plane to Acapulco. One of the two Banodyne buildings had been gutted before the firemen had brought the flames under control. The people who had hired Vince to kill Davis Weatherby, Lawton Haynes, the Yarbecks, and the Houstons, and the Hustons had almost certainly employed an arsonist to torch Banodyne. They seemed to be trying to eradicate all records of the Francis Project, both those stored in Banodyne files and those in the minds of the scientists who had participated in the research. The newspaper said nothing about Banodyne's defense contracts, which were apparently not public knowledge. The company was referred to as a leader in the genetic engineering industry, with a special focus on the development of revolutionary new drugs derived from recombinant DNA research. A night watchman had died in the blaze. The Times offered no explanation as to why he had been unable to flee the fire. Vince figured the guy had been killed by intruders, then incinerated to cover the murder. The commuter van ferried Vince to the front door of his townhouse. The rooms were cool and shadowy. On the uncarpeted floors, each footstep was hard and clearly defined, echoing hollowly through the nearly empty house. He had owned the place for 2 years, but he had not fully furnished it. In fact, the dining room then and two of the three bedrooms contained nothing except cheap drapes for privacy. Vince believed that the townhouse was a way station, a temporary residence from which he would one day move to a house on the beach at Rincon, where the surfers were legendary, where the vast rolling sea was the overwhelming fact of life. But his failure to furnish his current residence had nothing to do with its temporary status in his plans. He simply liked bare white walls, clean concrete floors, and empty rooms. When he eventually purchased his dream house, Vince intended to have polished white ceramic tile installed on the floors and walls in every one of his big rooms. There would be no wood, no stone or brick, no textured surfaces to provide the visual warmth that other people seem to prize. The furniture would be built to his specifications, with several coats of glossy white enamel, upholstered in white vinyl. Man, Vince has a interesting taste. The only deviations that he would permit from all those shiny white surfaces would be the necessary use of glass and highly polished steel. Then there, thus encapsulated, he would at least feel at peace at home for the first time in his life. Now, after unpacking his suitcase, he went down to the kitchen to prepare lunch. Tuna fish, 3 hard-boiled eggs, half a dozen rye crackers, two apples and an orange, a bottle of Gatorade. The kitchen had a small table and one chair in the corner, but he ate upstairs in the sparsely furnished master bedroom. Okay, so him and Nora have a little bit in common. They both like, I wouldn't really like compare both of them, but like both of them like eating in their bedrooms. That's a similarity. He sat in a chair at the window that faced west. The ocean was only a block away on the other side of the coast highway and beyond a wide public beach. And from the second floor, he could see the rolling water. The sky was partially overcast, so the sea was dappled with sunshine and shadows. In some places, it looked like molten chrome. But in other places, it might have been a surging mass of dark blood. The day was warm, though it looked strangely cold, wintry. Staring at the ocean, he always felt that the ebb and flow of blood through his veins and arteries was in perfect sympathy with the rhythm of the tides. When he finished eating, he sat for a while in communion with the sea, crooning to himself, looking through his faint reflection on the glass as if peering through the wall of an aquarium. Although he felt himself to be within the ocean even now, far beneath the waves in a clean, cool, endless world of silence. Later in the afternoon, he drove his van to Irvine and located Bernardine Laboratories. Laboratories. Banodyne was set against the backdrop of the Santa Ana Mountains. The company had two buildings on a multiple acre lot that was surprisingly large in an area of such expensive real estate. One L-shaped two-story structure and a larger V-shaped single-story with only a few narrow windows that made it look fortress-like. Both were very modern in design, a striking mix of flat planes and sensuous curves faced in dark green and gray marble, quite attractive. Surrounded by an employee parking lot and by immense expanses of well-maintained grass, shaded by a few palms and core trees, the buildings were actually larger than they appeared to be, for their true scale was distorted and diminished by that enormous piece of flat land. The fire had been confined to the V-shaped building that housed the labs. The only indications of destruction were a few broken windows and soot stains on the marble above those narrow openings. The property was not walled or fenced, so Vince could have walked into it from the street if he had wished, although there was a simple gate and guard booth at the three-lane entrance road. Judging by the guard's sidearm and by the subtly oh my gosh, subtly forbidding look of the building that housed the research labs, Vince suspected the lawns were monitored electronically and that at night sophisticated alarm systems would alert watchmen to an intruder's presence before he had taken more than a few steps across the grass. The arsonist must have been skilled at more than setting fires. He must also have had a wide knowledge of security systems. Vince cruised past the place, then turned and drove by from the other direction. Like spectral presences, cloud shadows moved slowly across the lawn and slid to the walls of the buildings. Something about Banodyne gave it a virtuous, perhaps even slightly ominous look, and Vince did not think that he was letting his view of the place be unduly colored by the research that he knew to have been conducted there. Alright, I'm gonna leave it right there for today. I know it's short, and that's on me for not managing my time well today. No excuses. So a quick recap of what I read. After finishing off his prior victims, Vince went back to took a plane to Orange County to do further research on the Banodyne laboratories, and on his way to the lab, he saw that the lab was partially burnt down, and he saw that it was not looking good. And what else? And now he's leaving, and oh my gosh, looks like I did not understand this reading. But what I got from the reading is that he went and researched he just went to see the fire that was set on the laboratory in Orange County. That's the recap of what I read.